The screams are the worst thing. They don't stop. Women, children, even the elders, they sound the same when the soldiers come. They pulled my father out first, tying his hands with rough rope that left his wrist bloody. "The king sends his regards," one of them said, smirking. "My name is Ekene, and I'm the last son of Oji, the fisherman." At least, I was. That night, my village, Umuzik, became just another story no one tells. The king of our land, King Chima, was rich. People whispered he didn't just trade kola and gold. They said his wealth came from selling flesh, our flesh. None of us wanted to believe it, but deep down, we all knew. When his men came, we knew exactly what they were there for. It was just another quiet evening. The sun was sinking behind the trees, casting long shadows. I was helping my mother clean fish by the riverbank when I saw the first plume of smoke. The soldiers came out of nowhere. They set fire to the huts and chased anyone who tried to run. My mother pushed me into the reeds. "Stay hidden," she whispered, her hands shaking. I stayed crouched in the water, surrounded by the muddy roots of the mangrove, unable to move as my people were dragged away. When they grabbed my mother, she didn't fight. She looked back at the river, straight at me, even though she couldn't see me in the shadows. Her face was set, her eyes blank. She knew I was still there. And then, she turned away. I will never forget the sound of her screaming my name as they took her away. The next day, I dared to sneak back into what was left of the village. Everything was gone. No people. No huts. Just ashes. I followed the path they always used when they took the captives to the coast. Days later, I saw it with my own eyes, the place they called the King's Market. It wasn't a market for food or goods. It was for us. Black bodies shackled in iron, lined up like cattle. The sun glared down, making the chains burn against their skin. I saw my father there. They tied him to a pole, his back bloody from whips. His head hung low, but I could tell he wasn't broken yet. He wouldn't look at the men with the pale faces, the ones weighing gold and salt. He just stared at the ground. The king sat high above it all on a platform. He wore a robe brighter than anything I had ever seen before. His gold necklace caught the light. He laughed, cheered on the trade, and drank palm wine from a calabash. His soldiers guarded him like he was untouchable, as though the screams below were nothing but music to his ears. The worst part of it wasn't the pale men buying. It wasn't even the king's laughter. It was the realization that our own people had betrayed us. His soldiers were men from nearby villages, brothers, sons, uncles of those being sold. They tied the knots, held the whips, and burned the crops. Some of them even shared meals with us days before the raid. For what? To protect themselves? Or to win a seat in the king's court? I tried to free my father that night, but it was foolish. I was just a boy. Before I could reach him, the soldiers caught me and dragged me to the edge of the market. One of them drew a knife, and for a moment, I thought that was the end of me. But another said, "No, let him go. Let him see what happens if he returns." And so, I ran. I ran until my legs gave out and the stars blurred in my vision. I collapsed on the dirt road, where I cried for hours, hating the king, his soldiers, and even myself for being too weak to save anyone. King Chima lived like a god, but gods don't last forever. One day, I heard from wandering traders that his riches dried up, his soldiers abandoned him, and his enemies came for his throne. But by then, it was too late for the families he had sold. Too late for Umuzik. Too late for mine. Now, I tell this story so no one forgets. The king thought wealth would make him immortal. He didn't understand that memories last longer than gold.